A once thriving valley, now reduced to ruin, swallowed by an unforgiving landslide. Jagged wounds scar the mountainside, deep cracks splitting the earth where life once flourished. Dust and rock, a churning gray tide, had swallowed the meadow whole. Twisted, splintered trees clawed at the bruised sky. At the heart of the devastation, partially buried beneath a jagged slab of granite, lay a motionless she-wolf, her fur matted with mud and blood. Her fur, matted with mud and blood, was the only visible sign of her once proud form. A whimper, thin and reedy, escaped her cracked lips. Nearby, a tiny wolf pup, no bigger than a loaf of bread, nudged his mother's flank with his wet nose. He whined, a desperate, high-pitched sound lost in the desolate silence. He licked at her face, his small paws scrabbling uselessly at the rock pinning her down. His eyes, wide and luminous in the gloom, reflected the chaos around him, the stark reality of his mother's stillness. He whimpered, his voice rising to a small, heartbroken howl. The pup's paws trembled as it struggled to stand, its fragile body shivering in the cold. Nearby, the mother's breaths came slow and labored. The tiny pup pawed frantically at its mother, its small, dirt-streaked paws pressing against her still, unresponsive form. His relentless efforts were heartbreaking, his innocence a stark contrast to their harsh reality. The tiny pup struggled desperately, its small body trembling as it pushed and pawed at the unmovable weight, refusing to give up. The air was thick with the scent of crushed earth and the metallic tang of blood. The pup's howls grew more frequent, more desperate. He nudged his mother again, his small body vibrating with exhaustion and grief. He tried to dig at the rock with his paws, his efforts futile against the immense weight. His tiny whimpers turned into a heartbreaking wail, a sound of pure, unadulterated despair. A single tear traced a path through the grime on her cheek. She made a low, guttural sound, a barely audible moan, a last attempt to connect with her pup. It was a sound of unimaginable pain, of surrender, of a love that defied even death. The pup, sensing this finality, snuggled close to his mother, his tiny body trembling. He licked her face one last time, his tiny whimpers a muted symphony of loss against the vast, silent landscape. The mountain roared, then shuddered. Dust and rock rained down, swallowing the world in gray. When the silence returned, only broken whimpers filled the air. The pup stumbles forward. Her eyes, wide and desperate, scanned the ravaged landscape for help. Her mother. She has to help her mother. Staying means death. With a trembling breath, she turns and starts moving. Her tiny paws press into the dust-choked earth, the weight of the unknown stretching before her. Her breaths come in quick, shallow gasps as she stumbles forward, leaving her mother behind. Each step is uncertain, her tiny paws slipping on loose gravel. The small pup moves through the ruins of a world shattered. Her legs tremble, her breath ragged, but she pushes on. Her legs tremble, then fail. The pup collapses onto the cold, dust-choked earth, her small body heaving with every desperate breath. But she couldn't give up. Not now. She stood up again to continue. She was alone, utterly alone, in a world turned to rubble. But then, through the swirling dust, figures emerged. Hikers, their faces grim, their eyes wide with shock at the devastation. They stopped, staring at the tiny, dust-covered creature, its desperate struggle a stark contrast to the ravaged landscape. A woman, her face etched with compassion, stepped forward, her movements slow and cautious. The pup watched, her breath shallow, her hope a flickering flame. She took a hesitant step towards the woman, a tiny, trembling creature against the overwhelming weight of her loss and exhaustion. Then, her legs buckled. She collapsed, her small body shuddering, her whimpers fading into a soft sigh. The woman reached her, kneeling beside the pup, her hand gently stroking the matted fur. The other hikers, initially hesitant, approached, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe and pity. The mountain, silent now, seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The hikers exchange confused glances as the woman whispers, "It's trying to lead us somewhere." Without hesitation, they gather their supplies and press forward. As they crest the ridge, the land opens before them, a valley swallowed by mist, littered with shattered boulders and the skeletal remains of uprooted trees. The hikers stand frozen, the weight of the moment pressing upon them. A silent question lingers between them. What lies ahead? The destruction grows with every step, nature itself a wounded beast, scarred and broken. Yet, amidst the ruin, hope still flickers. The road is unforgiving, each step a battle against the broken earth. Still, they climb, their resolve unshaken. A sound, a cry carried by the wind, faint as a whisper yet powerful enough to stop them in their tracks. Their pace quickens. Fear and hope intertwine, pushing them forward toward the unknown. And then, they see it. A body half buried in the ruin, life hanging by a thread. The pup cries out, the sound raw with emotion. And in the wreckage, the mother stirs. They fight against the impossible, refusing to surrender. Their strength is her last hope. The earth groans in protest, the line between rescue and ruin razor thin. A final act of will, a last stand against fate. And then, silence. And then, a breath. Weak, but there, life wins. Mother and child, together again. Against all odds, love endures. They came as strangers. They leave as something more. The road was long, the battle hard, but in the end, hope remains. But now, a choice must be made. Leave her to fate, or carry her burden as their own. Without hesitation, they choose to fight for her life. Their supplies are limited, their knowledge imperfect, but they must act. Every moment counts. But now, a choice must be made. Leave her to fate, or carry her burden as their own. Without hesitation, they choose to fight for her life. She drifts in and out, her body failing her. But she is not alone, not anymore. They must move her. But every step forward risks breaking her further. Every step forward is a battle against the wild, against time, against fate. A moment of refuge, a fragile hope. But the battle is far from over. Fever sets in. Her body shivers. Will she make it through the night? The night stretches long, filled with silent prayers and heavy hearts. She lives. Against all odds, she lives. Pain lingers, but survival triumphs. She stands not just for herself, but for the little one who still needs her. They saved her, and in return, she gave them something greater, proof that kindness, even in the wildest places, matters. Not all bonds are meant to last forever. Some are fleeting, yet they leave their mark in ways words cannot describe. If this moment moved you, if you believe animals deserve kindness, care, and a second chance, subscribe now. Be part of the journey, because every life, no matter how small, is worth saving.